I just told him he'd do fine.
Wait a minute. Yeah, it's shooting close enough. There we go. Ooh, why did it do that? So how do you pass this class? Those of you who have been in class with me and we did article critiques, we're going to be doing article critiques in here as well, but they're going to be a truncated version. We're going to, drugs change constantly. When I was a child and people were smoking marijuana, of course we didn't call them that, we called them reefers. I know. When people were smoking marijuana, marijuana had a strength of about 6 or 7% THC. Now, with all, yeah, I know, we're getting to the point where it's approaching 90%. So THC is the hallucinogenic property of marijuana, and it's just getting stronger. Stronger every day, as odd as that seems. And of course, we're legalizing it now. Back when it was only 6 or 7%, and people were going, I think I feel something. I think I feel something. Back then, of course, it was illegal, and now that people are getting really stoned just from a little bit, or it's actually in the candy. So, wait a minute, they put it in. Yeah, I know. They call them edibles, and it's got lots and lots of THC. The problem is, of course, it looks like candy, tastes like candy. People are eating it, and the kids, of course, are getting a hold of it and eating it. Lots and lots of problems. I don't have anything good to say to you guys as far as drugs are concerned. Alcohol's not good, tobacco's not good, nicotine's not good. Marijuana, despite the fact that we're legalizing it in so many different states, I've got no good news for you. It's all bad. And the reason it's bad is because it is, most of these things are alkaline in property. That's the property of the drugs, and that's why they work on your body. And because of that, they change the chemical structure in your body. So alcohol does, nicotine does, all the legal things do. The doctor gives you an opioid, gives you a hydrocodone because you've got a toothache. It changes, it's an alkaline, and it changes the chemical properties in your body. So I've got no good news. There's nothing good that you can take to have a good time. Sorry, except for sugar. And of course, sugar eventually will give you diabetes. It's just a continuing problem, and it's a problem here on the reservation. This is my Friday Gallup Independent.
Now here it's moving up to like methamphetamines, and
Pinyon.
You know.
Oh my God, it's like meth capital of the world. No, meth
Like,
capital of the reservation.
I guess they try to get that high, that first high, so they move up to another dangerous drug to replace it.
It's a wonderful coping mechanism.
I just don't get why somebody would want to be impaired judgment. I mean, the first time I tried it years back, it scared me. Literally scared me because everything just became kind of,
You were like paranoid?
yes, paranoid and everything.
I know it
became
causes you to be
impaired.
paranoid. Isn't that nuts?
I don't want to feel that feeling.
Yeah.
You do that.
You feel like everyone knows. No.
It's like it felt like you're going to walk out that door and there's going to be a whole SWAT team outside.
That's funny.
I know.
Just nervous.
I know. The SWAT teams are always after the people smoking pot. So this is the Gallup Independent from last Friday. On the front page, Pine Hill man assaults Rama PD police department officer. Why did he do it? He was drunk.
They don't do that around here.
No.
Doesn't happen.
Well, there's been some strange things happening lately. Last week, like a young girl almost got kidnapped by 4 guys right here, Salient Acres, and then some 64-year-old man got attacked by 2 individuals, and they were high and drunk.
High and drunk, so we're talking about marijuana. And,
Marijuana or methamphetamine.
so
One
what
of
about
each.
the 4 guys that were,
The 4 guys, I'm not sure.
okay.
She was just attacked by them. Yeah, strange things happening.
And then there's actually a girl who was kidnapped from Jeff's side of the country out there in Round Rock, Texas.
Really? Well, there's always something happening in Texas.
I don't know what they thought they would get from bringing that girl to the reservation, but
What? So they kidnapped her from there and brought her to the reservation?
yeah. I was like, where do you expect to hide her?
Okay, so on the front page, the Pine Hill man assaults a police officer. He says, "I'm going to F you up, you effer." That's what you should say to cops. That really makes them feel good. And of course, they arrested him and they had to tase him. And then they found out he was intoxicated. And he was also a felon and he was on probation.
Wow.
Whoops, and he's not supposed to be around alcohol.
That's crazy.
Man on supervised release assaults officer at Hopi. This guy was on supervised release and he was drinking at the elementary school. That is so smart. Cibola man gets 6 years for meth trafficking. He had, what did he have? 55.74 grams of methamphetamine, and he sold them to an undercover law enforcement agent. Whoops.
It's like a revolving door.
There you go, isn't that great? Intoxicated woman arrested at drive-thru. A Twin Lakes woman was found guilty by a Gallup District Court jury Wednesday of DWI and abuse of a child after a one-day trial. She had a 6-year-old in the back seat. She had all these open containers. She didn't finish anything up. She had like two half a cans of beer. She had a vodka bottle that was half empty. Like, what's going on here? But she was obviously intoxicated. She blocked the drive-through at this restaurant, and she wouldn't move. And she had a baby in the back, or she had a 6-year-old in the back seat. So they got her for like everything. Artesia man gets 2 years of prison term. Gets 2-year prison term in DWI crash that hurt 6. So he was drunk and he wrecked his SUV into somebody else. My goodness gracious. So it's happening around here. All this stuff is taking place around here. Okay. Former Farmington teacher sentenced to 5 years of probation. A former middle school teacher, what's that, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, in Northwest New Mexico was sentenced to 5 years of probation after pleading to charges that included conspiracy to commit drug trafficking, promoting prostitution, and aggravated battery.
A teacher?
A teacher,
Middle school teacher.
middle school
Ooh.
teacher, 5th
No
grade,
good.
6th grade.
No
So.
good.
The judge had sentenced Anna Marie, this is a female teacher, to 7 years in prison, but the Aztec judge on Tuesday reduced the sentence to probation. The former Farmington teacher had entered an Alford plea. An Alford plea is where you know that there's enough evidence against you to convict, but you don't plead guilty. So because you don't plead guilty, they don't throw the book at you. It's called an Alford plea.
What do you call that, Alfred?
Alford.
Alfred.
Alford, A-L-F-O-R-D, Alford plea. So there were 8 charges against her, and he dropped 6 of them.
How's
Oh,
that
I'm sorry.
Why
Five
do
of
they
them.
do that?
Why do they drop them? Well, they can't. They're afraid that they can't convict, and for that reason. But there is enough evidence to take them to trial, but they're afraid that they're not going to be able to convict. So they
One
will
question,
get.
is she pretty?
So-
Kidding.
So they will drop charges so that the sentence isn't as bad. They'll drop charges just to get the conviction.
That's so backwards.
Yeah, but she doesn't admit her guilt. So if this ever comes up again, she hasn't been convicted of anything because she wasn't found guilty. She Alfred plead her way
Wow.
out. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Shh. Schroth was arrested in 2016 on charges that she prostituted a woman and conspired to sell methamphetamine. Schroth was later charged with attacking her ex-husband and damaging property. You wouldn't think that attacking your ex-husband would
Oh
be
my
bad.
God, all the anger.
And, okay, anyway, that's the horrible stuff that's going on around here. So let's talk about how we pass this class. What am I going to be expecting from you? There's not that many chapters. There's only 9 chapters in the book. The book is kind of weird because each chapter starts with page 1. Each chapter does. So I can't tell you go to page 360 because there is no 360. It's kind of an odd book. Anyway, so we're going to talk about all of the really fun stuff, uppers, downers, hallucinogens. We're going to talk about other addictions. We're also going to talk about treatment and drug prevention and psychotropic medications. So this is the class where we're going to talk about SSRIs and anxiolytics. We're going to talk about antipsychotics, but that'll be the last chapter. Okay, so what are the requirements? There is obviously a paper. You can write a paper about anything that you like, as long as it's in the textbook. If you're into methamphetamine, or maybe you have a relative that is using something, or maybe you've got a relative that swears that marijuana is not bad. You know, write a paper about about marijuana. And if you can find any information that marijuana isn't bad, that is real research, then please do, and we'll make it part of the class. Good luck.
What about, like we were talking about the revolving door earlier?
Right.
These individuals that are constantly coming and
Right.
going, and they get their restrikes and they're back into the system there. Can you write about something like that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. That'll be fine, if that's what you want to do. Or you can just pick a drug and find out everything you can about it. Like I said, I've got no good news. There's no good drugs out there. Alcohol's bad. I'm sorry, it's been legal since 1932. It probably kills more people than any other drugs.
Yes.
Right now,
Yeah.
people are dying from heroin overdoses and opioid overdoses. It's trying to catch alcohol, but it never will. There are just too many people out there getting drunk and really hurting themselves.
I really despise alcohol. Sorry. I lost so many family to that. So.
And I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, but this is really a serious problem. Alcohol. And I have alcoholics in my family as well. And as far as I'm concerned, they're idiots, despite the fact that IQ's in the 150 range. Doesn't matter how smart you test, this is how smart you act, okay? That's my argument. Yes, your IQ's higher than mine, but you're drunk as a skunk. And completely non-functional. That's my point. Okay, the 10 articles that I want you to write, what I want you to do is research these things. You need to see that things are changing. So find something that is relatively new. If you can find something that is positive about a drug, methamphetamine makes your hair grow, I don't know what's out there. If you can find anything positive, then write up that article. But of course, there's a lot of articles that say how bad these drugs are. If you go onto the marijuana legalization sites, they'll tell you about how wonderful marijuana is, but they don't have any research to back them up. They can't back up their claims. And for that reason, of course, you really shouldn't use those websites because they're mostly erroneous. There's a lot of research coming out of New Zealand and Canada where marijuana has been legal for an extended length of time, so there's a lot of good research coming out in New Zealand and Canada. In the United States, we're kind of racist. That's not right. We're kind of ethnocentric. We think that only research from the United States is good research, but the reality is there's other stuff out there. Ecstasy is a good example of a drug that's not really illegal, but and people will swear by it because it raises your serotonin level a lot, yeah, and it makes you feel good. But the question is, what does it do to you? And I had a student from Switzerland. She was Swiss. She's a very interesting lady who had raved over in Europe. And of course, she was perfectly normal and it hadn't killed her. And she said, you have to be stupid to die from ecstasy. But the reality is people do die from ecstasy because there are negative things about it. And some people never come back. One of the things that we're going to learn is that if you use a drug, even something as non-destructive as marijuana, potentially it can kick you into psychosis. If you use something stronger like actually crystal meth, all the amphetamines mirror a psychotic episode. So that's one of the reasons why you feel so good. That's the high that you get because you feel it's almost psychotic. You get that's psychotic reaction from it, as much fun as that is. Anyway, but it can kick you into psychosis. You can go nuts. Smoking a joint. Do they call them joints? Blunt? I don't know. A doobie? I don't know. Anyway, okay. But especially crystal meth, and especially all the amphetamines, boy, they can make you crazy. You can actually become crazy. And I have a story about a student that I once had up in Montana who had a psychotic episode because she went back on meth. Idiot. Oh, okay, wait. Anyway. I'll tell you the story when we're talking about that. She was a lot of fun. Smart. Oh, she was so smart. Just as smart as... but she thought she was somebody else.
Wow.
I know. She's an Inuit. You know, one of those Alaska people? Okay. So her mother was an Inuit and her father was from Fort Belknap. And she thought she was Mexican. I know, it was so funny. Or not. Oh, I thought that was me. I don't have my telephone. Okay, so what do? We write a paper about one of the drugs. You do the 10 article critiques, and that's for 200 points. Like I said, it's truncated, so if you've done article critiques in the past where you felt like you had to write a page or 2 pages or 3 pages, that's not what I want. I'm only looking for a couple paragraphs here, and I want you to tell me about what the research is talking about. There's just a ton of research out there about all of these drugs. So if you can find something, I want you to find something negative about the drug, and if you can, find something positive. If you can't find something positive, just go ahead and give me 2 negative articles. Make them as current as possible. Those of you who have been in class with me before, I'm not really looking, I don't argue with you. If you tell me something, I'm not going to say, no, you're wrong. I just want you to think, okay? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you guys to think. So, okay. Anyway, whatever. That's it. That's how you pass the class. So there's 10 chapter tests. Each one is worth 20 points. There's a library paper. There are the 10 article critiques, or 10 chapter article critiques, 2 per chapter for 200 points. So most of your points are going to come out of the article critiques. And like I said, I'm not really trying to teach you how to write an article critique. All I'm looking for is new information about the drugs. And if you can find anything positive about them, go ahead. When you research about marijuana, one of the things you're going to find out is that it actually does lessen the pain that people feel. So you can use it as a pain control mechanism. It also will control nausea. So yeah, if you smoke pot, you're not going to be vomiting. So if you're, you have a problem with cancer and pain with the cancer, then the pain's going to go away, the nausea's going to go away. They use it with individuals who are being treated for AIDS because of the pain and the nausea that goes along with that problem. But that's not THC. We're not talking about THC. We're talking about CBD, which is another chemical in marijuana. We can isolate the CBD. So when we talk about marijuana, what I really want you to talk about is smoking pot. Okay. Not using the oil to control your autism or to control your epilepsy. It does work. CBD does work with epilepsy. It seems to help people who have ADHD. But it's the CBD, not the marijuana, not the THC.
Okay.
Okay. All right? So don't get into that argument where it helps people.
Okay.
I mean, it helps people with nausea, it helps people with epilepsy. It's just the oil that helps. It's the CBD that helps. We want to talk about the people, we want to talk about legalizing marijuana in Colorado, California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, the District of Columbia, Alaska. Why did they do that? And what's going to happen next is the question.
Tax.
If you start using marijuana before the age of 12, this is a research done down in New Zealand. What they discovered is that you'll lose 10 to 20 points, IQ points, because it restructures your brain and your short-term memory doesn't work as well. Now, I don't know how many IQ points you have, but if I lost 10 or 20 points, I'm hurting really a lot. I'm in bad shape.
Oh,
You guys can give away all the IQ points you want, but I can't. I'm not that smart. Unfortunately, I'm not that smart. Okay, let's see what's going on. So there is an online component and a face-to-face component. This is my face-to-face class. I have like 12 students that are going to be watching my video and making fun of me because I'm so silly looking. Okay. All right. So let's start talking about drugs. Far out, man. I got no good news for you, damn it, sir. None of this stuff is any good.
So don't even think about it. Just kidding. Just kidding.
No good news whatsoever. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you, you can get drunk, it's okay, because it doesn't hurt you. It does. I can't tell you that about any of this stuff. Okay, the first chapter is about addiction. One of the things we're going to find out is that most of these drugs were legal. Alcohol was legal, marijuana was legal, heroin was legal. They used to put cocaine in Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Coca-Cola. It was legal, and then they realized, oh my God, what are we doing to people? At present, there is a debate going on over the legalization of medical marijuana. Not only that, but of course they have legalized recreational marijuana in the state just north of us, Colorado. So you can go to Durango, and I don't know how it works. I have no idea. My son used to live in Denver. He left because he couldn't find any, he hated working there. Not because he's not a good worker, he busts his tail. But because the people smoking pot are very bad workers. They're lazy. They can't remember things. He had a waitress. He was working in a bar, and they had a grill in the back, and there was a waitress, and she'd forget from the table to the bar what her order was. That's how bad it was. This lady was a mess. Sometimes she'd forget that she's working, and she'd sit down with the patrons and start talking to I know, crazy stuff. If you smoke pot and try to drink at the same time, if you mix your inebriating substances, then potentially it will knock you out. It just knocks you out. And that's what happened. Some people would come in for a drink, they've been smoking outside, they've been toking outside. That's the word, that means they've been smoking pot, toking. And that's out of the 60s. So I've got all the words, I know all the words, so you guys don't worry about it. I'll teach you all this stuff. If they've been toking outside and came in for a drink, sometimes they pass out at the bar. Well, what do you do with somebody that passes out? What do you do?
Throw them out.
You can't throw them out, they're unconscious.
Would that be
Leave 'em
nice?
You can leave them there, but what if they just had a heart attack instead of their drunk? If someone is unconscious in your bar, what do you do? If someone passes out where you're working, what do you do? If you work at Walmart and somebody passes out on the floor, do you just walk around them?
Respond.
You
Make
have
sure
to
they're
respond.
responsive. Make sure they're still breathing, if not perform CPR.
They might, if they're laying on their backs, they might vomit and choke themselves to death.
But the sad part though is mostly everybody do just bypass somebody like that.
If you work there, you can. Legally, you can, especially in a bar. Somebody
There was
passes.
this story, can I share a story?
Sure, yes,
I was
please.
on the news, this was a couple of years back, but there was a lady in the neighborhood, you know, everyone knew her as the crack lady, because she did crack, and, you know, like she was saying, everyone just passed her by, you know, and she was unresponsive, she just laying there, and everyone thought, oh, she just, you know, she had her high or whatever, and she's just laying there. But she was kind of tilted over, and you know, and they thought she was just so high that she just, you know, fell over. But this motorcycle guy, he was like, no, that doesn't look normal, you know. And he went to go see her, but she was actually trying to commit suicide.
Oh, no.
So everyone thought she was just high on crack, and you know, she was bent over, but no. He went over there to see if she was responsive, and you know, she was holding a belt or whatever, because she had a hoodie on too, so they couldn't see, you know, she was restraining herself. So she was over, and like he just like put her to her side and trying to, you know, wake her out of it, and she almost died, but he saved her life. And he was like, just because, you know, she gets high or whatever, it doesn't mean that, you know, she passed out, or, you know, like something is wrong, still respond to them, but he
He
saved
didn't
her.
know her.
He didn't know her
He
either.
didn't know her, but
He just, her behavior was weird, you know, and he's like, no, she's not passed out.
That's just too funny. I'm not funny at all. That's sad. Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
You guys almost let her kill herself.
And everyone was just walking by like, oh, she's high on crack, you know, just leave her. But he's like, no, something's wrong.
She's trying to commit suicide. Okay. Oh, I've got so many stories, but I'm not going to tell them. Okay, that's a good story. Currently, the drug that seems to be causing the most serious problem is crystal methamphetamines. That's not true anymore. It's now heroin. Heroin seems to be killing people. Opioids seem to be killing people. They were cutting their methamphetamines with elephant tranquilizer. This is in Cincinnati. Somebody got a hold of a shipment of elephant tranquilizer. Well, you can imagine how strong elephant tranquilizer is. In one weekend, they had 12 people that died in the Cincinnati area. And Cincinnati's right on the Indiana border. So this was leaking over into Indiana. If anybody was getting any of this super stuff, a lot of them were dying, and they were going into the emergency room. If somebody overdoses with heroin, you can give them Narcan, and that will stop the reaction in their bodies. It saves their lives. Narcan used to cost $20 a shot, which is kind of expensive if you think about it. So they actually sold the company, and the guy that bought the company decided he wanted to make more money off of Narcan. So he raised the price to $120 a shot. And it costs like $2 to make. I know, but it was the only company in the United States that could make this stuff. So just because he decided he wanted a profit. As funny as that is. Crystal meth, anyway, was a really serious problem. It was a serious problem in this part of the world. It was a serious problem up in Montana, to the extent that they started a program trying to tell people that you can't use this stuff ever. If you use it one time, you're hooked. And it's true, methamphetamine works that way. Your body gets used to this stuff, and you have to have it. And people will use it to the extent that today you use one whatever, tomorrow you'll have to use 2, the next day you have to use 4, the next day you have to use 8. So it gets to the point where you need a lot of it. When people are on methamphetamines, they don't care about anything except getting high. That includes if they have children. Last year when I was teaching this class, an individual from Pinyan, a police officer from Pinyan, came in and talked to the class, and he said women were selling their children for a high. Selling their children in prostitution. They were selling their children, just giving them away so that they could buy their drugs. As horrible as that sounds, people will prostitute their children. We're not talking about children, we're talking about babies. We're talking about babies, 18-month-olds, 2-year-olds. Who wants to have sex with an 18-month-old? They're out there. I guess these guys do, the guys that are selling the crystal meth. You can see what has happened to these ladies. Sometimes 18 months, 2 years, they have aged decades. This is what she looked like before. 2.5 years later, this is what she looked like. It's kind of cute. Not bad looking. Not attractive at all. Not too bad looking. I think this one was 6 months. Not very good looking. It really messes up your immune system. And so if you come in contact with herpes, you come in contact with impetigo, that's why they have these facial problems. They also have a tick, where they pick at their skin. They feel like they have bugs crawling on their skin. So they pick at themselves, and they'll pick sores on their faces, and that's why this lady looks like this. Not too bad looking, looks like an old hag in the other picture. And that's the way crystal meth works. It accelerates your life process, which is kind of fun if you think about it. And there are a lot of people out there that don't think that they'll live into their 30s or 40s. And so they do these kinds of things, not thinking, of course, that they may live into their 60s or 70s, and they accelerate the whole process. Not only are we having trouble with it in North America, but they're also having a problem in Europe and Asia as well, methamphetamines. It's speed, it accelerates things, makes you feel like you can do things that you potentially can't do. The most serious problem in the United States at present seems to be the use of prescription drugs, especially hydrocodone and OxyContin, the opioids. We also have a problem with fentanyl. If you've ever heard of the singer Prince, you remember Prince. Prince was flying in his private jet. They landed at the Quad City Airport in Moline, Illinois. That's where I live in that area. Prince landed. Why? Because he wasn't responding. Why? Because he had taken fentanyl. They took him to the hospital, they gave him Narcan, he came back, got back on his airplane, flew back up to Minneapolis, where he's from, and 2 days later he overdosed on fentanyl. They found him in his private elevator, dead, from fentanyl. What is fentanyl? Fentanyl is an opioid, just like morphine. It's an opioid. It's 100 times stronger than morphine. It's not a street drug, or it wasn't. But he got it. He got a hold of some of it, and now he's dead. He was under 60, he's like 51 years old, and he died. Anyway, prescription drugs. So prescription drugs are a problem. Fentanyl you can't get. It's not on the street. You can't make it. You can't manufacture it. Some of these things you can manufacture yourself. but not fentanyl, not usually the opioids. The opioids, you have to have a
Prescription.
well, yeah, you do have to have a prescription. If you don't have a prescription, something will work. This is really a problem with teens because what they'll do is they'll go into their parents' or their grandparents' medicine cabinets and they will steal their drugs, their Oxycontin, their hydrocodone. A lot of individuals are having problems with back pain, with whatever kind of pain, and they're taking all these opioids. And so the kids are stealing this stuff. Potentially they're replacing it with something that doesn't work. And of course, we got a problem. The biggest killer among all the addictions is smoking of tobacco. And if you've been watching television lately, if you watch normal television, not cable television, then they've had these advertisements on television. They had to do this. Tobacco was cheating, and they cheated for a really long time. They knew that the tobacco, that the nicotine was dangerous, that it caused all of these problems. And they wouldn't let anybody do research. They sued people that did research that said that tobacco was bad. In the 1950s and 1960s, every other commercial on television, every other advertisement was a tobacco advertisement. Salem cigarettes, Marlboro, Winston, Camel cigarettes, Old Gold, The Lucy Show. If you ever watch old episodes of The Lucy Show. Lucy Show started out, I Love Lucy, started out with Lucy and Ricky coming out on stage smoking Old Gold cigarettes and telling you how wonderful these cigarettes were. The Dick Van Dyke Show, the one with Mary Tyler Moore, they used to come out on stage before anything, and it was just an advertisement. It was a commercial, and both of them were smoking cigarettes. The funny thing about Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore, well, that's not that funny, both of them were alcoholics. As it turned out, both of them were alcoholics. One of them went into rehab and he cured himself. He cured himself of being an alcoholic. So he was a recovering alcoholic. The other one didn't. And she died last year, I think, at age 70. She died. And Dick Van Dyke, of course, who was older than she is still alive. Mainly because he got off the sauce. Anyway, smoking tobacco is really dangerous. It's really destructive to your lungs. You can see, I've done autopsies. I hate to tell you that, but I've done autopsies. And you could tell if the guy's a smoker. You can smell it when you cut into the guy. You can, yeah, I know. It smells like an old ashtray. It's nasty. It's like somebody peed into somebody's ashtray. It's horrible. What a horrible smell. Anyway, you can tell if they're a smoker or not. Their lungs are nice and pink if they're, I know this looks white, this is because has been out of the body for a while. But if you cut into somebody and their lungs are nice and pink, you know that they weren't a smoker. If they're black or brown, you know that they were a smoker. And you ask yourself, how can you do this to yourself? And the reason you can do this to yourself is because it's so highly addictive. So right now, the tobacco companies are on television telling us that they cheated and they knew that they were doing it. They told people that the nicotine levels were lower than they actually were, that there was no harm that was being done, and people are dying because of this. And this is a commercial on television. They have to do it. They were sued by, like everybody, the United States government, because they lied, and they lied for decades. Doctors used to prescribe smoking tobacco to women who had nausea, morning sickness. The doctors would tell them to smoke cigarettes. How stupid is that? It causes miscarriages, all kinds of horrible things. Anyway. The use of performance-enhancing drugs in sports has been an issue since the home run race between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa in 1999. Of course, if you weren't alive in 1999, well, you all of you were alive. Come on in. You need something.
Is there an extra paper pad in here?
Good question. Oh, this one's empty.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyway, so 1999, Martin McGuire and Sammy Sosa. Well, both of them were on performance-enhancing drugs. We knew about Martin McGuire. We didn't know about Sammy Sosa, and he still denies it. Barry Bonds, of course, the question is, well, I guess it's not a question in most people's minds. Was he on steroids or was he not on steroids? And most people think that he was. At that time, of course, it wasn't illegal to use steroids. So for that reason, a lot of people did. If you were told that by using steroids you could become a major leaguer, would you do it? I can give you this magic pill, and you'll be able to make millions of dollars. It's a magic pill. There's no law against it. There's no rule against it. Would you do it? I have a magic pill. It might cut 10 years out of your life. That's a possibility. You might have problems from it. But because you take this magic pill, you'll be the best athlete in the world. Would you do it? I can guarantee millions of dollars for one pill. Well, you'll have to continue taking these pills. Right now you have nothing. You live in poverty. And if I give you this one, all you have to do is take this pill and take it on a regular basis. You'll look better. Everybody's going to love you. Will you do it? And I can guarantee millions of dollars. And nobody will know. They're not even testing for it. Don't worry about it. Nothing to worry about. I can guarantee you millions of dollars if you take this drug. You going to do it? Think about it. Are you going to do it?
No,
Why not? Don't you want millions of dollars?
no, because
Don't you want fame?
I wouldn't put a price tag on my life.
It's only 10 years. Okay? Everybody will love you. You'll be Jacoby Ellsbury. What, he's Navajo, isn't he? Yeah. Who's he play for? He just changed teams, didn't he? Does anybody know who Jacoby is? I don't know what he is. You'll do it? Yeah. Okay, I got one. Will you do it? Of course you'll do it. Millions of dollars. You'll be popular. Everybody will love you. Come on, Edison, what do you think? Come on. Millions of dollars. It's like winning the lottery.
Out of all honesty,
You'll be beautiful. It's going to make you strong and beautiful. You'll be gorgeous. It's a promise. Would you do it? Would you do it?
if I was after fame, yes.
Okay, there you go. So what about Sammy Sosa's from the Dominican Republic, poorest country in this hemisphere. He's from the Dominican Republic. They don't even have baseball gloves down there. They play baseball with cardboard boxes as gloves. That's how they learn to play baseball. He has no money whatsoever. Would he do it? Of course he would, and he did. And of course, this has been a problem, especially in the Caribbean area, in Central and South America. These individuals, they're poverty-stricken. What will you do for fame? Will you take this one pill? Marion Jones, fastest woman in the world, performance-enhancing drugs. I know. Really serious problem. Are we after fame? Of course we are. People go on television on Big Brother and all those other stupid reality television shows, and they make an ass of themselves for fame. We're still talking about the housewives of Atlanta. Isn't that stupid? One of them just died. Who cares? For one thing, she's from Atlanta. Why do I care about a woman from Atlanta? And she was a... Can I say that? I'm on video. Is that all right? She was not a nice person. But she did it for fame. How about those crazy guys on the Jersey Shore? Snooki and the legend.
Jay Wow and Holly Dino.
They're acting like jerks on television, and they were. So what will we do for fame? You know, your 15 minutes of fame. People will do just about anything. There has been an immense growth of computer games, cell phone usage, and other online problems, especially pornography. The #1 industry in the world, are you ready for this? Well, here's a surprise for you. It's pornography. It's the #1 industry in the world. More money is spent on pornography than anything else. Cars, oil, pornography, naked people. It doesn't really matter who they are. They don't even have to be attractive. They just have to be doing something, I don't know, with something or someone or groups or I don't know, whatever. Pornography, video games. Video games, Halo 1, 2, 3, I'm not sure where they are as far as Halo is concerned. With the increase of technology, psychologists have been behind the addiction power curve in identifying problems that people are having. In the next DSM-6 and DSM-5 TR, whatever comes out next, there will be a technology addiction. People have to check on their cell phones. Everybody has their cell phone on. Well, you don't. It's turned over. So, but what if somebody texted you? Would you know it? Do you want to know it? You're in class right now, and I'm boring you to tears. But do you need to know if somebody's trying to call you? How connected to people do you have to be? Your child is trying to get a hold of you. Of course, that's important. Your BFF is in Wilson's class. They're going to tell you how boring Wilson is. And you're emailing, you're texting back. You think he's boring. You ought to hear what this shithead Bradway says. My God. How many times on average do you check your telephone every day? The number's up to 49 or something. As insane as that is. Guess who forgot their cell phone today? Edison already knows. I forgot my cell phone. Oh my God, what if my wife's trying to get hold of me?
You'd be able to do that all day and see how many times I look at my cell phone. Just kidding.
Good idea. Count
Just
them.
for a fun.
See how addicted we are. It's not so bad here. It really isn't so bad here. I was in Clinton, Iowa, teaching at Ashford University, and a lot of our kids came down from Chicago. Boy, I'll tell you what, those kids were on the phone constantly. I mean, all the time. It was insane. You'd walk down the hall and you'd say hi to somebody and they wouldn't hear you because they were texting the guy that's walking with them. Why not just talk to the guy? What the hell's going on? Who are you texting? They would sit in class and text the entire time in class. There were professors that wouldn't allow them to have cell phones. I didn't care. I don't. It doesn't bother me. You guys have to check your cell phone to make sure. I don't know. Young and the rest of us hasn't. Something has happened.
What time the new episode of Law and Order is coming on?
Oh my God! Guess who's going to be on next? Oh, early man saw his world as mysterious and dangerous, and they had a basic need to cope with his environment, and he used drugs to do that, sometimes. Early man discovered that by ingesting certain plants, they could ease their fear and anxiety, reduce pain, treat some illnesses, give them pleasure, and assist them to talk with their gods. Peyote. How old is peyote? How long has it been around? How long have they used it around? I know the Native American Church uses peyote. How old is the Native American Church? I know, because I was reading a book over the holiday. You know where it started? Peyote? It's weird.
Yeah, they have different stories.
It's okay.
Yeah, they have different stories. And I would say that I used to grow over here by Flagstaff,
Sure.
and then they said that the people started using it in a bad way, and then that period just started like it migrated towards Mexico and Texas area, and so this used to grow. I guess I don't know how long back, but then it migrated that way, and then I don't know when it was, but I guess the Apaches they started using it, and then they taught the Comanches, and then
That's
the
funny.
individual Colonel Parker, he
started the
introduced-
church.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think back in the 1880s.
You know- Yeah, 1889 or something
Yeah,
like that.
something like
I know the Comanches say that they gave it to the Apaches. The Apaches say they gave it to the Comanches. It's really kind of interesting. So who gave it to who? Well, you guys had it first. Is that what you? Yeah, over in Flagstaff. It's not like everybody was using it though. It was only the holy men that were using it. Yeah. It wasn't being used by everybody. Yeah, but it has changed. Things have changed. So they had a way of communicating with the gods, and they used different drugs. Different individuals use different drugs. Where did alcohol? You guys drink alcohol before Spanish? The Spanish came over here.
We actually sold it to them, then we brought it back to them.
No, we gave it to you. Not only that,
We gave it to
gave it to you so that we could steal your stuff. Drunk Indians, you can take just about anything from them. Yeah, that's.
people,
That's. I'm sorry.
I hear stories like if people blew it or naked.
Yeah, I read about the Apaches doing that.
Yeah.
Tissuin, they call it. It was corn.
Yeah.
Corn alcohol.
So
Corn
guess-
yeast.
Sorry.
Corn yeast.
Yeah, there's corn or something.
Yeah, but I'm not exactly sure when it started.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that there were a lot of people that were wandering around drunk.
Or potatoes. The yeast from the potatoes.
Doing down in Acre Country?
Mhm.
Yeah. There were a lot of drunk people. Okay. That was something the Europeans brought up. You guys hardly did it at all, if at all. Peyote hardly did it at all. Only the shamans used it. The human brain responds to psychoactive substances. When people suffer from mental illnesses or behavioral addictions, the altered state of consciousness makes the individual feel better. And that's why we take these drugs. It makes us feel better. Psychoactive substances make the individual feel better. Otherwise, they wouldn't use them voluntarily. I mean, if it really bothered you, you wouldn't do it. First time I got drunk, I got depressed. Well, this is how smart I am. I did it again. Guess what happened the second time?
I know.
I got drunk, exactly. How stupid am I? Well, I'll tell you how stupid I am. I did it a third time. And I got depressed again. And I'm going, this is the dumbest thing in the world. I'm not coping with anything. It makes me feel bad. The next day I got the flu. It makes me vomit. Wait a minute, that's the flu. I have a headache. I never get headaches, ever. I can't even remember the last headache I had. Yes, I can. The last time I was drunk. The next day I had a headache. That's the last headache I've had. I don't get tension headaches. I don't get migraine headaches. I don't have these problems. But if I drink alcohol, I do. How smart am I to stay away from something that makes me depressed, that gives me the flu, and gives me a headache? It only took me 3 times to figure that out. Because all my friends are saying, no, this is how you cope with a divorce. You get drunk. It'll make you feel better. It didn't make me feel better at all. It made me feel worse. I know. I know.
Because you were getting a divorce. No.
I should have been happy that I was getting a divorce from the craziest lady that ever existed. Now, the question you really should be asking is, why did I marry her in the first place? That's a question you should be asking. It had to do with sex. So,
Oh, gosh.
I know, I was like 19 years old, dumb as dirt. My God. That's sad. The sex was so important. When you're 19, sex is really important. It's like the only thing there is. So I got married. Governments, ruling classes, and religious entities have sought to control the supply of drugs through growing, manufacturing, distribution, and prohibition. So they control things. Can anybody grow marijuana? It's legal in Colorado. They're one of the largest fields of marijuana just north of Snowflake, Arizona. As odd as that sounds. Marijuana's got to be the greenest stuff you've ever seen. It's greener than soybeans, it's greener than corn, it's green, it's so bright green, it's almost fluorescent green when it's grown, if you see whole fields of it. I live in Iowa. In Iowa we have ditchweed, what they call ditchweed. It grows in my fence row. It stinks. It smells really bad. So how in the world do we control it? By telling people where they can grow it, how to manufacture it, whether they can distribute it or not. And of course, right now we're having an argument about marijuana. The federal government under Obama said he wasn't going to prosecute people for breaking the law, for growing marijuana or for distributing marijuana. The federal government wasn't going to prosecute. However, this administration has decided it will prosecute. So the question was, sure, it's legal in Colorado, but where's it going to come from? That was the question. Because the federal government could have said, no, you can't grow it in the United States. It's against the law to grow marijuana in the United States. But Obama said he wasn't going to do anything about it. And his administration did nothing. But now, this administration has said that they're going to prosecute. So the question is, all these growers, all these people with, Willie Nelson has his own fields somewhere. We have all these people that have bought into the marijuana manufacturing and distribution, and the question is, what's going to happen next? We don't know. But the federal government has control over this kind of stuff. The federal government can go into California, it can go into Oregon, it can go into Washington and Alaska and Idaho and Colorado and tell them no more. So where's the marijuana going to come from? Mexico, of course. Or Snowflake, I don't know. Ancient Sumerian medicine men used opium as a secret medicine, and it works. It really does work. Makes you feel better, takes your pain away. Now, one of the sad things, and this is probably the saddest thing I'm going to tell you today, I apologize for telling you sad things, but one of the saddest things is that I am not sensitive to opiates. So if I break my arm and they try to take the pain away, give me a shot of morphine, it doesn't take the pain away. They can throw all the Oxycontin that they want down my gullet, it's not going to work. It doesn't work. You can knock me out with fentanyl, which is a good thing. You can knock me out because I've had surgery. How do you knock me out? Well, you can use fentanyl. But I wake up during surgery. I know. They have to hit me again. I went to the dentist. When was it? On the 2nd of January. And he shot my jaw full of Novocaine. And he said, "Can you feel that?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, okay, well, I'll give you another shot." Gave me a second shot of Novocaine. "Can you feel that?" Yeah, I can feel it. Gave me a third shot. He had to shoot me 3 times with Novocaine to knock out my... it's a tragedy. Do you know what that much Novocaine feels like after, you're not numb anymore? It's kind of it should be a headache, but it wasn't a headache for me because I don't get headaches. And I was really kind of weird. You just feel kind of dull. The pharaohs of ancient Egypt would dole out beer to keep their laborers building pyramids, so they fed them beer. That works. Just keep them stoned, man. They'll keep working for you. Coca leaves were controlled and doled out by the Incan rulers in Peru to maintain the needed laborers in the country that they controlled. And if you've ever been in that area, and I have, I've been to Peru, and I've seen the walls that these guys built. These things weighed tons, these rocks, and they're putting them down. They're making them so that they have these connectors underneath, and they fit together perfectly. And so they weighed just tons and tons, and they're picking them up and they're putting them down. So who was doing this? Well, it was slave labor that were all zapped out on coca leaves. After the Spanish conquered the Inca, they controlled the growing of coca leaves to increase tax revenues, money. And one of the things we're going to find out is that drugs and money go together really, really well. One of the excuses for legalizing marijuana isn't because we're trying to help people. It's because
Money.
yeah, it's the money, it's the cash. The federal government needs the cash. Once upon a time, we realized that alcohol was killing us in the United States. We were drinking gallons and gallons of alcohol every year. It wasn't just destroying the American Indians, it was destroying everybody. We were not manufacturing as much as we should because people were getting drunk. Drunk men sometimes will beat their wives. Sometimes they'll kill their children because they're men and they're drunk. And this was happening before Prohibition. So the women got together and they decided that they were going to stop all this. And the temperance movement is finally took hold, and in 1919 they passed a law prohibiting alcohol, the manufacture and the distribution of alcohol. So we went into a period of prohibition from 1919 until 1932. Why didn't they just keep it? You could drink beer. You could drink all the beer you could make. In some states you could drink beer. You could drink wine, but you couldn't drink hard stuff. Why did they stop it? Why in 1932 did they stop prohibition? You keep saying that's the reason why. Why did they stop it?
Money?
Money. We were in the Great Depression. Great Depression started in 1929. Roosevelt decided that we needed more cash. So he repealed prohibition for the cash. It's for the bucks. If we legalize marijuana in the United States, it's going to be because of the money. And there are people that argue that we need that money. We need the cash. And of course, Donald Trump is all about the money. Show me the money. That's what he wants. He wants money. He wants us to make a lot more money. But what does marijuana do to you? Nothing. It makes your nausea go away. It takes your pain away. That's the good stuff that it does. It also takes away your short-term memory. And if you're a kid, it rearranges your brain, restructures your brain. If you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy, one of my favorite movies, that's what it's going to look like in 50 years. We already have, if you've seen any new movies, the movies don't follow a plot line. Wonder Woman, what? There's no plot line. It's just action after action after action. Is it because these kids are stoned? They're the ones that want to watch the movies, and they can't remember what happened at the beginning of the movie. They've been smoking too much dope. They can't remember. So all the movies, a lot of the movies, especially the popular ones, there's no plot line to it. It just goes from one action sequence to the next. And nothing makes any sense. That's what our future looks like. It's going to be impossible to teach kids. It's already almost impossible to teach kids. Down in Florida, my son's a math teacher. Kids think they can Google everything. You can't Google a math problem. I'm sorry. You can't do it. It's not going to work. They can't remember formulas. They can't remember anything. Why? Because they're smoking too much dope. It's kind of sad. Anyway, we'll see what happens next. The American revolutionaries exported and taxed whiskey and tobacco to help finance the revolution. We are a nation because of whiskey. Because we taxed whiskey. And there were a lot of people drinking a lot of booze back then. There you go. If you've ever watched an old English show, if you've ever watched Downton Abbey on television, those guys drank bottle after bottle of booze at a meal. And these were 18, 19, 20-year-olds. They learned to drink by going to dinners. And the dinners had a wine with the whatever, and then they had a brandy for this, and then they had an aperitif afterwards. How much alcohol is that? It's a lot. These guys really knew how to drink. Europeans are the best. They are number one. They're professional drinkers. You think I'm kidding? I used to live in Germany. These guys start drinking. They don't drink 12 ounces of beer. They don't drink pints of beer. You get a pint in England, but you don't get a pint in Germany. You get a liter of beer. A liter. I know. A liter. They have these huge mugs with a liter of beer. Beer in Germany isn't the same as beer in the United States. Almost all the beer in the United States is 3.2 beer. What does that mean? It's 3.2% alcohol. If you go up to Canada and drink Molson's, you go over to Australia and drink Foster's. It's Australian for beer. If you drink Foster's beer in Australia, if you drink German Beck's beer in Germany, or Amstel beer in Holland, it's 12% alcohol.
And it's
So,
4 times stronger.
Like,
It's
for
bigger,
the
too.
history of alcohol itself, was it to, like, you know, the history, was it to replace the water, because the water wasn't that good
Oh,
back then, or?
They
was it-
contaminated all their streams. Yeah, you can't drink water.
So they had to, whiskey was.
They had,
the
yeah,
only
they had to
option.
kill the bacteria. They had to kill all the nasty stuff with alcohol. It works. It really does work. Yeah, they're drinking lots of alcohol over there. Even when I was there from 79 to 82, we couldn't drink the water. They wouldn't let us drink the water. We couldn't wash our vegetables with the water coming out of the tap because it was contaminated. When my wife was there in the 50s, there was tuberculosis that was rampant in Germany. This is in Germany, right after World War II. That was pretty bad, pretty ugly.
Cause like all the Western movies that I watch, it's usually because of that reason. Like they drink whiskey because the water was contaminated and that was the only option.
Well, they drink the water anyway. It tastes like shit. And why does it taste that way? Because they use their streams as their sewers. Now they could have solved their problems by changing their sewer system. They didn't have to contaminate their water supply, but they did because that's the way they did it in Europe. They just dumped their sewage into the Rhine River or the Seine River. You certainly wouldn't want to drink that stuff.
Especially in the Renaissance era, it was really bad,
Oh, that's really bad.
really bad.
So you have to drink alcohol. So
It was the only option.
they became professional drinkers.
Yeah.
If you want something to drink, it better have alcohol in it, or you're a mess. There are people here that will not drink the water because they're afraid it's contaminated with uranium. I have no idea. I drink the water. But then again, I'm really old, so it doesn't really matter what I'm drinking. Technology allowed the addictive substances to change, improve, and strengthen potencies over the centuries, and that's what we've done with marijuana. Marijuana, when it first became popular in the 60s and 70s, very, very weak. Now, of course, we have hybrids. We do hydroponics. We grow it in special ways so that the THC is a lot stronger. The reality is that if you look at a marijuana plant, one of them is female, the other is male. The male plants don't have as much THC. It's the female plants with all the THC. And so if you do select things to those female plants, you increase the THC level. There were marijuana varieties, Acapulco Gold, for example, Humboldt Green, Maui Wowie. All of these different types of marijuanas had different strengths of THC, and that's the reason why people spent so much money buying Maui Wowie, was because it had a lot more THC than Humboldt Green, for example. Strangely, they name all this stuff after where they grow it. Humboldt is grown in Humboldt County, California. Maui Wowie is grown on Maui, for example. Alcohol was first distilled to heighten the potency in Arabia in the 10th century. So that's the first time we have any idea about alcohol. So they had beer before that. They had substances, fermented beverages, but it wasn't until the 10th century that they first started distilling alcohol and making it much stronger. If you understand the distilling process, if you've ever seen a still, this is the way it works. They take the fermented substance and they boil it and they turn it into steam, and then when it turns back into a liquid from the steam, then you have concentrated alcohol. That's the way it works. And the Arabs figured this out in the 10th century. If you want to make your own booze, and they do this all over the world, all you need to do is take a fermented substance. What ferments? Everything ferments. Well, any vegetable matter ferments. It gives it flavor. Corn, you can do this with corn. That's what corn liquor is all about. You can do it with potatoes.
Potatoes, apples.
That's vodka. Apples, what do apples make? I don't know. Maybe a whiskey. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. Whiskey is mostly corn mash. But you can use anything, and anything you put in there is going to change the flavor, of course. So this is the way it works. Do you get a lot of alcohol from it? No, you don't get a whole lot.
Hops.
You take a great big pot and you're making a quart. You're not making very much at all. But
I
it's
think
concentrated.
hops was the whiskey, I'm not sure.
What?
I think it was
Hops?
hops. Yeah.
That's how they make beer.
Oh, beer.
Yeah. I have a friend who is a beer connoisseur. I'm not sure why, but he drinks a lot of alcohol. He drinks a lot of beer. And he knows all the flavors. Oh, this one has a nutty flavor. Oh, this one was made with wheat. This one was made with corn. This one was made with whatever. Morphine was first refined from opium in Germany in 1804. So all of these drugs started at different times. Alcohol started, the really strong stuff started in the 10th century. Now the interesting thing about Arabia, you know where that is. That's where Saudi Arabia is. They're Muslim countries now, and they don't drink at all. Yet, alcohol started as a chemistry experiment in Arabia in the 10th century. That's the 900s. Well, it's almost time to leave, Johnny. Oh, you're cold? Yeah. I'm sorry. Sorry. It's 11:49. I only have a minute. I was only going to do one more slide. Cocaine was first refined from coca leaves in Germany in 1859. So we have coca, we have opium, we have morphine anyway. We have alcohol. This is when they were first discovered. An automatic cigarette rolling machine was invented in the United States in 1881. So if you look at, if you go back to the Civil War days, those guys were either chewing tobacco, which gets a lot of nicotine into your system, or they were smoking cigars, or they were smoking pipes. There's a reason why people who smoke cigars don't get lung cancer like people that smoke cigarettes. And the reason is because the tobacco is a lot harsher. So if you smoke cigarettes are relatively small, and you're not really getting that much nicotine, so you can draw it down into your lungs. A cigar, if you smoke a cigar, try it sometime. Smoke a cigar, Try to pull it down into your lungs and see what happens next. It's going to make you gag because it's very, very harsh tobacco. And so is pipe tobacco. And for that reason, cigarettes. When cigarettes were invented, all of a sudden we started killing people with nicotine. People were dying of cancer before. Freud, for example, was a cigar smoker, and he had cancer of the jaw caused by the nicotine, by the tars of nicotine in the cigar. But it's because he held it in his mouth, and he had to have his lower jaw replaced with a prosthesis. So for the last 10 years of his life, he had an artificial lower jaw. I know, really kind of tragic. Why don't we stop right here? We'll pick this up next time. As much fun as that is.